Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a heartwarming and hilarious tale from the world of theme parks, where a mischievous mouse and a playful photographer created a memorable moment for a family and everyone around. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you enjoy the content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a juicy story. The boss wants me to stand in the corner? Okay. Years ago, I was a photographer at a major theme park and worked with the characters on an almost daily basis. Our famous character is a mouse that owns the whole park. Everyone who worked there either referred to him as Boss or Mr. Mouse around guests. For the purposes of this post, I'll refer to him as Boss. One morning, I was assigned to work with the boss. He was in a mischievous mood and being an overall goofball. I enjoyed this, and so did our guests and character attendants. One of his favorite things to do when he was in a mischievous mood was to try and pass me the autograph books he'd signed, conveniently ignoring the fact that I had my hands full with a camera. As I went to take them, he'd drop them and run away, making a laughing motion. So we're with this family, and Boss does his usual pass the autograph books to the photographer stunt. He holds them out expectantly, and I said, "I'd love to, boss, but you know I don't know my ABCs." At this, the boss drops the books, takes my hand, moves me to a corner, and points to the floor, telling me to stay like I was a naughty child. "Okay, I guess I'm grounded," I said, pouting. Everyone at this point is howling with laughter, even our head manager, Diane, who'd stepped in to watch. So Boss continues his interaction with the family. Now, at the end of the session, we have the family pose with the character. So Boss gets everyone together and poses with the popular ta-da! Except there's no photographer. After a moment, the boss motions to the family to wait and stomps over to my corner. I'm fighting back a grin at this point as he turns me around, points to my camera, and then held up his hands as if to say, "What gives?" "Boss, you told me I'm grounded, remember?" I said with a sweet, innocent smile. It's at this point Diane pipes in with, "That you did, Mr. Mouse." Boss playfully drags me back to my spot and poses again. We get the photo and send the family on their way. Diane stepped out with them and offered to send them through again to get more pictures because I didn't take many on account of me being grounded. The family accepted, although the dad, who had tears in his eyes at this point, said it was the hardest he's laughed in a long time. To this day, it still brings a smile to my face. And that's why people go to those parks and pay god-awful prices. They make you feel good. Walt is a con man, but he found a con that works for everyone. And our second story. Mega Karan versus Abita. So today I took a trip down memory lane when my brother worked at a southern grocery store chain with green shirts and where shopping is a pleasure. My brother was a cashier. One of my brother's regulars was this elderly lady from Puerto Rico. She'd come by every Saturday to get her groceries. She didn't speak a word of English, but she was so endearing that my brother and his coworkers lovingly called her Abuelita. Even the managers there called her that. It turns out her grandson was a fellow cashier, and for big holidays like Christmas, she'd send him in with enough homemade goodies like tamales and enchiladas for everyone. Just a real sweet lady. One Saturday evening, I got off work early and decided to get some last-minute things for a barbecue my brother and I were hosting. We were living together at the time. It was maybe an hour before closing, so the store is practically dead. I made the critical mistake of changing into a green shirt, but it was a much darker shade of green than the one the employees wear. I was getting flour when Abuelita, who I'd met before on previous excursions, rolled up on her electric shopping cart and politely asked me in Spanish to reach something from the top shelf. I helped her, and she went on her way after thanking me. 5 minutes later, I was in front of the meat counter debating which brisket to get when I heard the cleared throat, the warning call of the wild Karan. I stepped aside thinking I was in her way. She cleared her throat again. I turned and looked to see someone who resembled a 250-pound version of Kate Gosselin, complete with the haircut. This was my fatal mistake. "Go to the back and get 5 New York strip steaks," she bellowed. Pardon?" I asked, not quite registering what was going on. "Are you deaf?" she screamed so loud that my ears are ringing. "I said get me 5 New York strip steaks." I'm sorry, but I don't work here, I said. I can get someone to help you, though. Don't be stupid. You helped that woman in the scooter, and you're wearing the shirt. You're just being lazy. I was done at this point and said, listen, lady, even if I did work here, what makes you think I would help you? Karen raised her fat fist. And then it happened. Something hit the side of her head with a loud smack before landing by my feet. We look down and see a flip-flop. All of a sudden, I hear raised voices in Spanish and turn to look. Abita is maybe 10 feet away, missing one flip-flop and holding her other flip-flop in her hand, winding up like she was an MLB pitcher. She was glaring at Mega Karen with black eyes and her mouth set in a firm line. Her grandson was running up to her, yelling at her in Spanish to put down la chancla. Cue Abita starting to cry and tell her grandson that she was only protecting the nice lady who'd helped her and that Mega Karen was going to hit me. Now by this point, the manager's coming over and Mega Karen must have realized she'd done goofed up. She pulled the quickest disappearing act I've ever seen. I returned Abita's flip-flop to her and thanked her. I also made sure the manager knew that Abita was trying to defend me. And that is the story of how a Mega Karen learned the terrifying power of Abita and La Chancla. You don't play with older Latina women. They're fearless and will mess you up. They're like the honey badger of South America. And our next story. The next time I ruined a wedding, I used to work retail at a year-round costume store, and we'd get some pretty interesting customers. I was closing on a random Friday night. About an hour before we were going to close, a regular customer walks in with a guy. I happen to know from past experience that this customer was a lady of the night. The guy came in with this huge black duffel bag. The store was a mom-and-pop shop and had a strict policy about not carrying large bags or purses around the store to help curb shoplifting. I asked the guy to either take it back out to his car or leave it up front with me. He was kind of squirrely, but after some back and forth, he finally agreed to leave the bag up front, but told me that he had a lockbox inside of it with some loose diamonds. He didn't want to leave it unattended. He pulled out the lockbox to show me, and since it was small and would be cumbersome to get into, I told him it was fine to carry it around the store with him. I then found out from the woman that they were going to be driving out of town to get married, that we're stopping by the store so that he could buy her a wedding dress. We didn't sell wedding dresses, but I told her that we had some really cool corseted dresses if she wanted to take a look at those. She went to do that while the guy wandered around with his lockbox. He was constantly going on to me and all the other employees about how rich he was. He also told us that in addition to being a diamond dealer, he was an astrologist that worked for NASA. After trying on a few dresses, she finally found one she liked and brought it up to check out. The dress rang up in about $180. When the dude saw the price, he completely lost it, and an argument ensued. After about 10 minutes of arguing with him, by the end, about 10 minutes before closing time, she decided to go back and get a different dress, but she reminded him that they also needed a ring and that he should pick something from our costume jewelry while she found a new dress. I showed him some rings, and he picked one, but when I told him it was $12, he asked me to show him something cheaper. He finally settled on the $2 ring. I told everyone to go ahead and start on closing duties while they finished up shopping. About 20 minutes after close, she came up with a $40 vintage-style dress. After a little more arguing, he finally agreed to pay for the dress. However, she also wanted a pair of shoes and flatly refused to leave without them. She was wearing a ratty pair of canvas tennis shoes. He kept insisting that they would look great with the dress and she didn't need shoes. They continued to argue, and by that point, we were coming up on almost a half hour after closing. My coworkers and I were supposed to be clocking out, and I still needed to close the drawer. Sick of listening to them argue and wanting to make staying open later as worthwhile as I could, I told the guy that since he had a case full of diamonds, surely he could afford to pay for the shoes. The guy got angry, grabbed his bag, and stormed out. She ran out after him, dragged him back to pay for the dress and ring. She then bought the shoes herself. I wished her the best of luck, and she was on her way. After they were gone, I locked up and finished closing. About 15 minutes later, when I was leaving, I noticed they were still in the parking lot arguing. I'm fairly sure that wedding didn't happen. It sounds like you might have been in a Tarantino movie and didn't even know it. And our last story. Neighbor has caused damage to my driveway. I've got a bit of a situation with my neighbor that's causing me quite a bit of stress. Earlier this year, my neighbor told me they planned to remove and replace the breeze block wall that divided our driveways. I was fine with it as long as they were careful not to damage my block paved driveway. My property sits about a foot higher than theirs, so I knew there could be issues if they weren't cautious. Fast forward a bit, and they decided to take on the task themselves with a jackhammer. Unfortunately, this caused the edge row of blocks on my driveway to drop, creating a significant issue for me. When I approached them about how and when they planned to repair the damage and replace the wall, they casually said they'd get some quotes soon. Their attitude left me feeling they had no real intention of fixing my driveway anytime soon. What really worries me is that we're planning to put our house up for sale in the near future, and this damage could definitely impact our property's value and appeal. Frustrated and concerned, I decided to take action. First, I documented the damage thoroughly with photos and written descriptions. Then I sent my neighbor a formal letter detailing the damage they caused, my concerns about the delay in repairs, and my expectation for them to fix the driveway and replace the wall promptly. I also mentioned that we were planning to sell our house, emphasizing the urgency of the situation. When I didn't see any progress after a week, I consulted with a lawyer to understand my legal rights and options. The lawyer advised me to send a second, more formal letter indicating that if the issue wasn't resolved within a specified time frame, I would seek compensation through small claims court. Surprisingly, this got their attention. My neighbor quickly hired a professional contractor to assess the damage and provide a quote for the repairs. Within 2 weeks, they'd not only fixed the dropped edge row of blocks, but also replaced the wall with a sturdier, more aesthetically pleasing structure. In the end, the repairs were completed to my satisfaction, and my driveway looked better than before. This resolution allowed us to proceed with our plans to sell the house without any hitches. And that's how you can handle a situation where a neighbor's actions impact your property. Always document everything, communicate clearly, and don't hesitate to seek legal advice if needed. It might take some effort, but you can reach a satisfying resolution. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.